Fiscal policies are some of the most challenging instruments for regulating mineral oil and gas industries. But they are also some of the most important because they speak directly to what the financial and non-financial benefits to the state will be. They are complex and they are varied. The area that interests me immediately is the area of taxation. Most people think of taxation from the point of view of assessment and collection. I think of it as a pipeline. I think first of it as the laws themselves. If you have the right laws, you're off to a good start. However, if you have bad laws or poor laws, nothing will save you from there. Once we have laws, it's important to have the right institutions, the people, to be able to implement the laws without interference. Even if you have the right laws, if the politics interfere with the laws, then the laws amount to nothing. The second most important thing is that there has to be the capacity to assess the tax that ought to be paid. Once the assessment has taken place, there has to be the capacity to collect the tax. And once the tax has been collected, then there has to be the capacity to manage the revenue, whether in expenditure terms or in savings terms. In the absence of capacity throughout this pipeline, even with the best will in the world, fiscal policies will come to pass. But there are other aspects of fiscal policies and taxation policies that are complex. One is that in the commodity markets, prices go up and down, and with that, the revenue that is potentially collectible. But in some cases, the prices go down so low that there's little revenue to assess and to demand tax payment on. The question here is, in the event that companies are expected to pay tax, but the market collapses, what should be the right policies? Should the governments waive the requirements for fiscal payments until the market recovers? If you argue that companies ought to be given a break, then presumably you will also agree that in the event that commodity prices go high, but not just high, higher than could normally be considered reasonable, then the government must also adjust the tax levied to be proportionate to what would reasonably be expected. Here is something else in the tax space. Most multinationals operate in different jurisdictions, and they move resources, including finance, to support one project and another. In the case of new projects, for instance, money is brought from outside to explore and to develop the project until that project is able to generate its own revenue. Those financial resources were either borrowed from banks or from other companies. When the entity starts to operate, those funds need to be repatriated. And sometimes the concept that is used is transfer pricing. Transfer pricing, looked at from that perspective, is both justifiable, legitimate, and transparent. But there are also incidences when transfer pricing can be misused to merely move funds from a more profitable entity to a less profitable one, and therefore avoid paying tax in two jurisdictions. This is undesirable. When I think of fiscal policy, it is this complexity that troubles me. It is the ability of governments to wrap their minds and their hands around this and be able to protect public interests without unduly victimizing private investors that I think speaks to best practice in the space of fiscal policy.